Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Caitlin Patton. I'm the Executive Director of the National Music Festival and your host for this evening's edition of Festival Forum. My guest tonight is Jared Hauser, who has been the Oboe mentor for the National Music Festival ever since our first season in 2011. Jared, welcome, and thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me in to do this. It's really fun. I've missed being at the festival, so it's nice to connect with you and the patrons of the festival. Everyone who's loves the festival this way, if just a little bit.
Well, it's wonderful to see you. It has been far too long since June of 2019, I guess. I just saw a message in the chat that you're a little bit hard to hear. I don't know if you can turn up your microphone.
I can. Is this better?
That seems better to me, yes.
Okay.
Great. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And yes, I see that is better. Great. Thanks,
Great.
Jared. So we're going to chat a little bit, and I have three different musical excerpts that we're also going to listen to. I'll sort of scatter them throughout our conversation tonight. But the first thing I wanted to ask you is what keeps you coming back to the National Music Festival year after year?
Well, it's a really good question. And, there are a lot of different things because there are so many things about the festival that I really appreciate. One of the big things is the people that are involved with the festival from different sort of perspectives. Of course, um, the people running the festival, the people working at the festival, my mentor colleagues are some very good friends, many of which I knew before being at the festival. Some I met at the festival, and there are people that I talk to throughout the year very often. But not only that, there's of course the apprentices, the people that come to learn and share their artistry, and then of course it's the audience and the people in Chestertown that are so fabulous. I think it's really amazing that the festival can grow um, as it has, given the relative size of Chestertown, the amount of support and enthusiasm that the community has for the festival is just it's really impressive. And there's people. It's been difficult not to be there for this season and last season because there's people that I've come to know there that we see every year. People that own businesses there, people who are concert goers,
Yeah.
um, just wonderful folks that and visit places that are very familiar now after a decade of visiting. So it's a really special place and a special community. There are a lot of other things. I bet we'll touch on those as we talk about making music and sharing art and things like that. But the people make it a very special experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard and I feel very lucky to be able to do something like this, work that we love in a community that we love and that is so supportive. We are quite blessed.
I was thinking about how, um, well, with many organizations, there's I forget what the certain ratio is, but based on how large the population is, that you expect so many and so many concert goers. And if you live in somewhere like New York City, well, if it's a small percentage of the population that you're counting on coming to your concerts, well, there's a huge population, right? Um, in smaller communities, that's more difficult because that percentage means less people. But it doesn't seem like that ratio rings true in Chestertown and the support of the community there. So it really does seem like a really neat place to have, created this special thing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. And I think the audience here is a little bit more adventurous than in a lot of places. And I love that we have been able to do music that we don't often get a chance to do in other places. And, some of that is orchestral pieces that Richard finds in programs, and some of it is chamber music that is
Mhm.
sometimes suggested by the mentors. I know you've probably suggested quite a few chamber pieces that have ended up in the
Probably.
programs over the years. So let's go ahead and listen to our first excerpt, because I always like to play some music early on. Um, this is one of the movements, I think it's the third movement, I neglected to write that down, of Andre Previn's trio for oboe, bassoon, and piano. And this is a performance from the 2016 festival. This was a piece that you had mentioned, Jared, as one that was memorable for you. I don't know if it's one that you perhaps suggested to Richard to be put on the program, or if it came from someone else. I don't know if
Well,
you remember.
this is a piece that so Jeff Kiesecker is playing bassoon
Yeah.
on this, and we've played this. I don't know if we've played it since then a few times, or we played it before then a few times, but it's just a really neat piece, and it's neat to have opportunities to play a piece like this repeatedly with colleagues, and see how it develops. So I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, great. Okay, then we will go ahead and listen. It'll just take me a second to pull this up. Here we go. Well, that was fun.
That was fun. What a neat piece. And boy, Michael Gert, he can play anything.
Yeah.
He really, it doesn't matter how hard it is. He can really just knock it out. That's just crazy. For those who may not know who I'm talking about, it's Michael Gert, the pianist, who is performing on that performance on that recording.
Yeah, he was a mentor at NMF for a couple of seasons. It was great to have him here. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about what it's like for you as a mentor to work with the apprentices who come to NMF. And let's start all the way back at the with the process of choosing who gets to actually attend. Um,
Sure.
so, for those who don't know, prospective apprentices apply through the festival's website, and there are various, cover letters and resumes and particular recordings that we ask for, which are different for each instrument. But we then send those applications to the mentors who select their own apprentices. We don't dictate to the mentors, who they have to bring to NMF, which I hope gives you a lot of freedom and makes it a better experience that we're not dictating anything to you.
Ah,
But I know it's also challenging when you have a number of good quality applications, and I think the quality has gone up over the past 10 years.
mhm.
It must be difficult to choose sometimes.
Indeed. This it's. I'm really pleased to do it. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to listen to all of the applicants. It's great. I wouldn't want it any other way, but it's pretty stressful. It's for a number of reasons. Well, thinking back to the early days or the first couple of seasons of the festival, before folks knew much about the festival, um, we probably quite a bit in wins, in fact, had to go out and find people, not necessarily go literally and find people, but spread the word quite a bit that there was this festival, that it was this great opportunity, all this experience, and you don't have to pay the tuition for it, which is something of, you can't find that very much these days. That used to be quite common at one point, but nowadays, a festival that completely supports every student is few and far between. So the experience for them is really great. So in those first couple of seasons, though, um, either I was bringing students of mine from the university, or I was talking to folks that I knew and said, you worked with me at this other festival or this other at this camp. Maybe you want to come to this, and some would come. But early on, there weren't that many choices, so it was great. If we only needed 2 or 3 other oboists and only 5 applied, cool. That was easy. Now
Yeah.
there's a lot of kids that apply, and sometimes there might be 25,
Right.
30 oboists apply, right? And on top of it, we don't always know exactly how many we can bring, because if the instrumentation doesn't call for 5 oboists,
Mhm.
then I can't accept all these kids, that percentage of the kids. If I can only accept 2 or 3 people, well, that makes it even harder. And so I think most years, 2/3 of the applicants I could accept without a second thought. And uh, usually I'll accept somebody and they have other offers and somebody won't come. And that's fine, because there's plenty of other people that want to come that are very skilled. But it's hard to tell people sometimes, sorry, I don't have a spot for you. And really, splitting hairs on who to offer a spot to very often. Um, Folks may not know about the actual audition tape process, so we ask everyone to send in some repertoire. I leave it very open. I just say, please send some orchestral excerpts of your choosing. I may ask for a certain number, and a solo piece or two of contrasting styles or a couple movements. So I leave that open to the applicant to, it tells me something about what they choose to um, demonstrate, right? So if they choose very difficult repertoire, then I know what makes it difficult, so then I can take that into consideration. Or if they choose to send much simpler repertoire, not that there's anything wrong with simple repertoire, mind you. I mean, some of the best music is the most simple music. However, if they send repertoire that is not as challenging in some aspects, then that tells me something too. Um, and so, since I don't ask for specific pieces and I'm not really comparing apples and apples all the time, it makes for a lot of listening and re listening again and again. So, I put a lot of time and care into it. Um, it also is, if I'm accepting just say three oboists, there are three people that I'm going to be working with, not just teaching lessons to, but actually performing with and collaborating with. So it's important to me to know get an idea of their personality from their recommendation letters, from maybe what their teachers have to say about them, or their colleagues, or a conductor that worked with them. So putting together a group that seems to work well together is really important to me. And the other difficult aspect is sometimes I get a lot of applicants from one school. So I prefer not to accept more than two people from the same school, because I want to get a different cross section of musicians. I find that being a teacher myself, there are strengths that students have from a studio that kind of run based on the teacher's teaching instruction. It runs through that studio. So I may want to have somebody from the university of this place and that conservatory and a few different places and different backgrounds. And for that matter, too, different age groups. One of the neat things about the festival for me is that the institution that I teach at, Vanderbilt University, we're an entirely undergraduate music school. So I'm not recruiting anybody to come to my school for a master's program, say. So it's just fun for me to work with these folks. I'm not looking for anything from them other than to have good colleagues for 2 weeks to share time with. And it, not that other folks are looking to get something out of the students. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I think a lot of times students do want to study with teachers when they're looking to go to another music school for a graduate program or such. So I know these kids just want to come play at the festival, work with me, do something good, you know. And it's really exciting. And some of the students that we've had have, you know, they're going on to have careers, very different sorts of careers, but careers in music. And it's really neat to look back and see this person's playing in this opera orchestra, or that person's teaching at this university, or etc. In fact, from our very first season, one of the apprentices from that first season teaches at a university in Tennessee, in the state I live.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of neat to just have that connection down the road with
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah, that is neat. That's a really interesting perspective, and thank you for sharing that. We're going to listen to some more music in a moment, but first, I also wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about, once you make those difficult decisions and everyone's actually here in Chestertown playing together, could you talk a little bit about what it's like actually working with the apprentices? You know, what a typical day is like, and what sorts of things you're trying to impart to your students?
So, first thing, right off the bat, they call me Jared. They don't call me Professor so and so. Even when I've been teaching at other festivals or camps, usually I'm Professor so and so. It's usually structured as it would be at a university or some sort of formal relationship. I find that it works best at the festival if we're working as colleagues for the most part. I suppose I am an authority in the section. I am there to mentor them and help them along and keep things organized. But I do want there to be kind of a sense where they can talk to me, that it's not completely formal. So we're all on first name bases. You know what I'm saying? And so I find that gets us off to a good start. Initially, we usually find an opportunity to meet before everything gets started. So maybe after the initial organizational meeting, the first big meeting that we have at the festival, we may go meet after that, or we may go have a meal, share a meal, or something like that. For oboists, every season I ask everybody, what do you want to work on while we're here? Occasionally people say solo repertoire, orchestral repertoire, things like that. But inevitably everyone says reeds, because for oboists, reed making is a big deal. And most of them are not coming from Baltimore. Some might. We have had students that have come from Baltimore, but nearby, that's okay with reeds for oboists. But if you're coming from Colorado or some high altitude and suddenly you're at sea level, basically, reeds go haywire. So reed making is a big thing. Even if you're coming from, say, Florida, the climate is so different that it's difficult to navigate. So a lot of people right away, can we go make reeds? Let's work on reeds. That's kind of a social opportunity as well. So that's kind of a fun thing. Each year also I bring some sort of double reed chamber music. Maybe it's trios for two oboes and English horn, or it's some silly arrangement of a who knows what. So, sometimes we'll play stuff and have fun. I've this one arrangement of music by Pergolesi, the themes that Stravinsky wrote Pulcinella with. And that one's a really fun piece to do that they all know well, so we all play that very frequently. As far as the actual organization of the students, I go through and, as all the mentors do, and very carefully make seating arrangements for everybody. And inevitably, with all the planning, the first day, something's not right. So then we have to tweak it again. But I try to make sure that everybody has an equal number of principal positions, principal second positions, English horn, chamber music, just that all the opportunities are spread out, that everybody has at least one big orchestra concert opportunity. Well, they all play in the orchestra the whole time, but what I mean is if we're doing Beethoven 3, they all want to play it. One of them gets that concert for principal. Yeah. So if they got that, then when they go do Pulcinella on the next concert, well, someone else has that opportunity, these big opportunities. I was listening to this forum with Jeff Kiesecker, my good friend, and he mentioned how, we're all tempted, like, I want to play that one. I want to play, Brahms 1, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. But these students are coming in to get opportunity to learn this repertoire. So for the most part, early on in the festival, I played in the orchestra a lot. Now, these days in the festival, I play in the orchestra much less. Maybe a piece that I have never played before that I want an opportunity to try. Or I'll play more supporting roles rather than leading roles. Um, Quite honestly, I've played Beethoven 3, for instance, so many times. I'm not benefiting from that experience as much as I love the repertoire, but those students need that first experience.
Right.
So I want to make sure that they get this sort of lift. Um, and then I do feel too that we've been doing more and more chamber music all along, which is a big part of supporting what the 21st century musician's career is going to be. And I think that's important that they get to do that stuff too. I may have gotten off the subject a little, but I think you
No,
got
it's
it.
great. It's wonderful. Um, yeah, that's all I think really interesting to hear. Um, so let's listen to a little bit more music, and then I have a few more questions for you in a little bit different direction. So this next excerpt, we're going to hear you in more of a solo capacity.
Cool.
And this is the first movement of the Concertino for Oboe and Strings by Brenno Blaut. This is from the very first season of the National
Yeah.
Music Festival in 2011 in Floyd, Virginia. So I will share this momentarily. That's
fun.
beautiful piece.
I love that piece. It's so fun. We did that again a few seasons ago, and it's fun every time. And that's a piece that at some point, that's something I want to record that piece.
Yeah.
It's a really great piece. Everybody loves it, and it's interesting. I was excited to hear what you and Richard chose for the excerpts. These first two are really interesting because they're not just strictly classical works. Both that one and the Previn, there's something of Brazil in that one, and there's something that's very song-like. And in Previn, he was a great jazz artist, so there's something else in there other than just the classical genre. And it's really neat to hear those pieces together because they represent some sort of something different, and it's very appealing. The music's really appealing in both cases for the performer and the audience. I think they're both great.
Yeah, wonderful pieces. Richard reminds me that that recording we just heard was the American premiere of that piece. Breno Blaut is a Brazilian composer, and that performance was conducted by Roberto Palmer, is a Spanish conductor who was an apprentice that first season. So you've been obviously working with us with NMF for 10 years now, but you've been working with Richard longer than that. And Richard and I just celebrated on Tuesday, we celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary, and you've known him longer than I have.
Indeed.
So tell us a little bit about how you came to meet Richard and work with him before NMF.
Sure. Well, actually, I was thinking about this the other day, kind of anticipating a question like this. And Richard wouldn't have remembered this, but I actually saw Richard conduct. I didn't meet him in person, but this was when he was still at the University of Michigan, probably 1988 or 89, when I was graduating high school, because I ended up going to the University of Michigan for school, and I saw him conduct. And so I've known about Richard for since I was a kid. And it may even have been before I was looking at schools it may have been prior to my imminent graduation from high school. But really, when we first met, I believe it was 2004, it was that summer, and he invited me to come to the Hot Springs Music Festival where he was the music director. And I'm pretty sure it was 2004. And the clarinet teacher then, Richard Hawkins, he and I both went to the University of Michigan together. And he kind of connected us. And I was really excited to become part of the festival. I had known about the festival for a while, and had a great reputation. And so I was invited to come that season to be the oboe teacher there. And it worked out. So for the next, I guess, 6 years, 5 years, however many years that is in between, I'm not going to do the math. I'll not do it right. We got to collaborate every summer in a similar sort of fashion as we do at NMF. It was a little different, actually. That festival was a bit different, but I got to know Richard well there, and the other musicians there very well, and it was a great experience. And then when for the very first season of NMF, this would have been in Floyd, with the recording that we just heard. Richard invited me to come be a part of that festival, and I thought, great, it's time for a change. I like Hot Springs, but yeah, well, you can't do the same thing forever. And I recall thinking to myself, okay, well, I'll give this a try, and if it's great, I'll do it again, and if it's not great, well, it's no big deal. Well, it was a great season. I had a great time in Floyd, and the you know, with something new, there's always things that are, there are always going to be bumps. There's always going to be
Yeah.
something unexpected, or, you know, I remember when I first got there, I had a new, it was my first smartphone. And, but I didn't, in Floyd, there wasn't service for that, whatever my service provider was. And I was like cut off from the world, it seemed like. But, you know, that's just one of those small, funny things that you remember, right? And, but it was a really great time. And then when we got to Chestertown, it seemed like it really, like that was a big boost for the festival in so many ways. And it's been great to be working with Richard and you for this whole time. Um, you know, it's funny after I really treasure my time in Hot Springs. Remember it very fondly, and but after those 5 or 6 years, I was a little ready to do something else. But I haven't once felt like that in Chestertown. You know, I look forward to the next season each time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I hope we have the opportunity to work with you for another 10 years.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to be there in person next year.
Yes. Fingers crossed that surely by next June, everything will be somewhat like normal. And
Sure.
I should also say at this point that the festival is scheduled for June 5th through the 18th next year. So mark your
Awesome.
calendars, everyone. We're already working on it and very excited about having a festival again. We've missed it so much. So it's getting a little bit late already. So I'd like to play our final excerpt for the evening, and then I have one last question for you after that to wrap up. So this is something a little more classical. Um, this is Mozart's Serenade in C minor. During the April Festival Forum with bassoon mentor Jeff Kiesecker, we played the first movement of this piece, and this is the third movement. This is a performance from the 2012 season of NMF, which was the first season that we were here in Chestertown. So I hope you enjoy. It has been so much fun doing these festival forum events, hearing recordings from past seasons that I hadn't heard, some of them in, almost a decade.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. It's really great to hear that piece. Boy, I love those serenades and the divertimenti. You know, we could do a whole festival just playing all of those. There's so many, and it wouldn't get old. Those are just it's fabulous music, and it's great to hear those recordings too. And some of those pictures, um, that picture from the Previn was really great. Um, Boy, it's funny to see pictures of myself and us all playing from a decade
yeah,
ago. It's a funny thing.
yeah, it is. I know I was looking through some pictures that showed up in my Facebook memories the other day from the first season in Floyd, and
Hmm.
so some pictures from the final concert. And I was not playing in that concert, but I must have been making my announcements since I was in the pictures and looking, thinking, gosh, I was thinner 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we all think those sorts of things. So,
Yeah.
well,
Well, I have one more question for you this evening. I'm curious to know when you started playing the oboe and how you chose the oboe as the instrument that you wanted to play.
sure. Well, it's funny. Music was a thing in my family. Everyone was a amateur musician. My brother actually, he's a bass guitar player. He was a professional musician for some time. Um, but music, everybody played music.
Mhm.
In fact, I realized at some point that I learned to read music before I could read words. I've been, playing an instrument since I was probably 3 years old. Um, and so, you know, I would go from one instrument to another and say, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Okay, what am I going to do now? This may sound funny because everybody plays the recorder, right? Everybody at some point in school. I actually like studied the recorder. Like I took recorder lessons and like Baroque performance
Yeah,
practice when I was like 4. So, um, I know, total nerdy kid.
great. I love
And um, so one thing leads to another, and my sister was a flutist. She went to music school, and I played flute as well among other instruments. And one day I came home. I said, "Mom, I'm not so interested in continuing with flute. What should I play?" And she said, "How about the oboe?" And I said, "Huh, what's the oboe?" And it stuck. Um, so it was we actually had one in the house because my other sister was played oboe for some amount of time and discarded it pretty quickly. And it just happened to be there, and it's not that far afield from the flute. So I tried it and I took to it right away, and it stuck. Um, I don't think anyone in the family thought that I would become a professional musician or even wanted me to become a professional musician for that matter. But at some point, I was at a summer festival and I remember exactly what piece it was. It was Shostakovich, the Fifth Symphony. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I love doing this. And I said, I think I want to be a professional musician. And not just that, I want to play in an orchestra. And so that's where I put my focus for years to come. And well, I don't really play in an orchestra full time anymore, but I did do that for a while. And I just, music stuck somehow. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because it was family involvement and immersion, or if it's just, well, I do know that I'm a fairly introverted person. I'm not shy necessarily, but fairly introverted. And it's something that I could just kind of get lost in. Um, and as a kid, that was kind of important to me as
yeah,
a young person. Maybe not kid, but, as a young person. And it stuck, and here we are.
that's great. Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been great to chat with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to uh, mention or share before we sign off?
Well, I'll just say, I've really missed not being in Chestertown. There, seeing all the people, seeing all my friends, whether it's mentor friends or folks in town. I was thinking just the other day how great it is that we can play a concert at the college and we can go do a rehearsal at the book plate
Yeah.
or at the Masoni Gallery. Those are all really special things that in other places, the festival really gets, uh, there's a separation between what you're doing at the festival and the town. It's so neat that we're all immersed together. And I really miss it, and all our friends there, and you and Richard, and it's a special thing. So I'm looking forward to our next opportunity to be together, and not just the festival too. I mean, I came to play for the chamber music series
Right.
once. It was great. You're all doing great work with that, and that you have programs happening all the time. It's really awesome. So I'm really excited for all the opportunities to be in Chestertown and share with everybody there.
No, well, thank you. We're looking forward to having you back in Chestertown, and we're starting up with our resonance series again this
Mm,
October. So
great.
we're really excited to finally get to have live concerts again.
Live concerts is amazing, isn't it? I went to one the other day. It felt really weird.
I know everything that we used to do is it's wonderful to start doing it again, and it feels very strange.
Well, I went into the place and I looked around and no one was wearing masks, and I thought this is scary. But then once the music started, I felt good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll get used to normal again eventually.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Jared. It's been such a pleasure. And
My
thank
pleasure.
you,
It's been
everyone.
great to see you, and hope to see you in person soon.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. Have a great night.
You too.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks for joining us.
Certainly.